Okay, we're ready? Okay.
We're good.
Good morning. Welcome to the September 21st, 2023 meeting of the Downtown Design Review Committee. My name is Justin Brandon, and I am chair of the committee. When called on, applicants and speakers will come to the front podium to speak. Only one person at a time should come to the podium. Do not approach the podium until vacated by the previous speaker. Speak into the microphone, please, and identify yourself and provide your address for the record when you begin speaking. Address your comments, questions, and testimony to the committee, please, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. It is unnecessary to repeat testimony previously given by others. Citizens may address the committee on agenda items by responding to the chair's call for speakers during discussion on each item and signing the speaker's log on the podium. All comments must be relevant to the item. The chair or presiding officer may, in his or her discretion, prohibit a person from addressing the committee and/or remove that person from council chambers if that person commits any disorderly or disruptive behavior. Please see the agenda for more information about these requirements. If you are parked in the Sheridan Walker parking garage north of John Rex Elementary School or in the Arts District parking garage south of City Hall, staff can provide you with a parking validation ticket. The agenda and documents are located at https://okc.primegov.com/public/portal. You will then select the Downtown Design Review Committee meeting and then click on the agenda item, and relevant documents will come up below. Keith, will you please call roll?
Brandon.
Present.
Copeland.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Black.
Here.
Schmidt. Here.
We have quorum.
Okay, we have quorum. Okay. First item on the agenda, approval of minutes. Entertain a motion for approval of minutes, or if there's any questions or comments.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Okay, we have a Blatt.
So it's kind of
Blatt
the other way
Jones.
around, though, but yeah, we know.
Motion approves or pass.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, item 3, cases withdrawn. There are none. Item 4, continuous requests. There are none. Item 5, consent docket. There are none. 6, case for individual consideration. We have DTCA-23-00042 at 520 West Main Street. Laura?
Good morning.
Morning.
Laura Griggs, Planning Department. And I will remember to do pictures. Sometimes I forget to introduce myself. Sometimes I forget to do pictures. Anyway, so very close to our current location, the former Holiday Inn, which if you're from here, you might have actually grown up with it being down the street. So it has been sitting vacant for a while. I included some history. Thank you, Katie, for helping with that research on, it was built in the mid-60s. Information about how Holiday Inn totally changed the way we handled staying at a hotel. And then it changed names for a few times, and then it stopped, I believe, functioning for hotel in the early to mid-90s. There was a nonprofit in there for a while, and it was included in an area downtown in 2009 intensive level survey, but at that time it wasn't 50 years old. And staff doesn't always agree with these surveys that were done, and in this case we don't agree, because what they stated was it wasn't yet 50 years old and that it exhibited non-historic alterations, and the only alterations that we could really see, and I should continue, was the portico share on the north, which is, it's kind of hard to get a good picture of it because of the trees, but is obviously different. So this is the alley view, so this is the east facade looking toward the parking garage, where you can see there are no openings other than the door. And this is the south facade that you can see from actually inside the parking garage where staff parks, the Sheridan Walker parking garage. You can also see it from Dewey as you're walking up Dewey. And there is a one-story part on the back of the building. Just to point out, we're only dealing today with the 2nd through 10th floor, and the roof above. So we're not dealing with anything on the site, anything on the first floor, and the back part here is 1 story, and we're not dealing with anything on that right now, yet. And so this is the entrance off of Dewey that you can see today that has the gate. There's a parking lot currently that's on the south side of the building. And this is the Dewey side looking towards the Montgomery. And so this is looking west on Sheridan, and there's a wall that goes around it. And as you can see, the wall gets quite tall at parts. And then the wall turns the corner and goes up Dewey. So you don't really have any kind of visibility from the sidewalk. There's no real pedestrian experience currently. Hopefully that will change. But as you can also see, the building is right on the property line and the sidewalk is right up next to it. There had been some trees, they've cut, and as you can tell, there isn't room for trees, but they had gotten big because the stumps are still there and they've cut them out. And so this is looking obviously down Main Street, so we're looking east. You can see Devon. That's looking down the alley again, and you can see the Montgomery on the left. And so we have the Montgomery, and I don't know how I got that strange vantage point that makes it look like it's, I don't know what, but, and then you have Sheridan Walker. But I wanted to get to the other corner so that you guys could see how well that mural turned out that you approved it several years ago. And then we have John Rex School that's across the street, obviously, and John Rex takes up that whole block across the street. And then we have some parking lots to the west and to the north, as well as some 1-story small office buildings. And then a block away, you have the Civic Center that just kind of pops up out of there across from the parking lot that some of you remember, where the parking structure had been proposed twice. So let's go back. And we'll just let it land on the Main Street view. So, as I said, staff doesn't agree that there has been extensive alterations to the building. There are some historic photos out there, and you can tell, other than, as I said, the portico share and the sign being gone, and that's probably been gone for quite a while. I think there might be some lighting. Those, I don't know if those round ball lights were original to it or not, but and so one of the things I do want to point out, it's fairly common. I'm one of those people that stays in the little mom and pop motels when we go traveling. It's fairly common in a motel or hotel setting to have individual room heating, air conditioning units. But in this case, they never had one on this building. So you can see, you know, that we don't have the disruption under the windows of the individual units at all. And what they're proposing is they're proposing that they would add one of those units under each bank of windows on both, this is the north facade as well as the south facade, but they're also proposing to put some on the end of each hallway. So they literally would be kind of, that door's about in the center, so they, you know, there'd be one on each floor going up those. So staff is concerned about the impact that that's going to have on the appearance of this building. Tall building, 10 stories tall. You can see it from quite a ways away. And we look on that building as, for a lot of different reasons, as a historic resource for the city of Oklahoma City, for both the fact that it was, at the time it was built, it had been decades since they had built a new hotel, different type of operation than any hotel previously. Very simple construction, and it has remained that way. And we're concerned about what impact that's going to have when you punch those holes under every window and put the unit in. So they're currently, the current plan that they're going forward with is to renovate this from a hotel into, hopefully I get the terminology right, micro apartments, I think is what I've been hearing. So the hotel rooms are becoming apartments, 316 square feet. What I included in the staff report is that the applicant had advised that it was cost factor is why they had chosen that type of heating, air conditioning unit for the rooms. I was talking to the architect before the meeting, and I know he's going to come and add some information to that. But staff were not as concerned about the east facade, which is the alley facade, because you have the Montgomery, you have the parking garage, and you don't really have a good view of that unless you were in the alley, and you really don't have a reason to be in that alley that goes nowhere. But we are concerned about the north, south, and west facades. Those are the street facades. They're extremely visible. And so staff's recommendation is to approve it with the condition that they eliminate those individual units, PTAC units. I had to look it up, and I included what that meant earlier in here because I didn't know what that stood for. And so just to get it on the record, I suppose that I need to say package thermal air conditioner units, that they eliminate those from the northwest and south facades, and that they provide revised elevations to staff prior to the issuance of the certificate of approval. With that being said, do you have questions of staff or comments?
Any questions for staff?
Was your objection primarily the projection and the shadow line that was created by it? Or was your objection just, I'm going to see this and I don't want to? Not so much that it's projecting outward.
I think my concerns literally are kind of all of that. So currently when you look at that and it's a horizontal, it's a horizontal feature of the building. And so it won't be a solid horizontal feature. It will have rectangular intrusions, so to speak. Will create the shade shadow because of the profile of it potentially, and totally change the look, especially if you look at how many, and I don't even know, I didn't count, I probably should have. If you look at the north and south facades and you count all of those openings, how many that is added on each. And it's a significant amount that is being added.
I'll just add, we included information about the history of the hotel and about it potentially being a historic resource. I think we would have the same concern if it was new construction. We would be saying, oh, is this really the best way to address this need, having these individual units, underneath 200 odd windows on the facade. So just the aesthetic of it is the concern. We are thrilled to see this building put back into use. We're thrilled that it's going to be housing. Wanting to make sure that we're doing this in the way that's the best way for the appearance of the building, for the appearance of downtown.
So I'll rephrase it a little bit. The concern is the visual, not the function of a unit in that location. If that function was there, but it wasn't as big of a visual intrusion, and I know that from a distance, it's one thing because all the little lines, the vertical lines that occur below the windows, they all kind of go away and they become massive horizontals. But when you get close, then those verticals come in and other shadow lines come in. But if visually nobody was drawn up to see, oh, hey, there's something else, you're not opposed to necessarily the function of a PTAC unit underneath the window. You're opposed to the visual obstruction from a staff standpoint.
I think I have a hard time envisioning how you make that go away on such a plain facade. There's not a lot of ornament to work with to disguise it like you might have on some other more decorative buildings. But I think we have no objection to the function. It's more just, the visual impact.
I was discussing that specific thing with the architect before the meeting, and I'm assuming he will probably bring that up. I don't know if there's a way to design it so that it blends in more, so it doesn't break up the horizontal band as much. I don't know the answer to that. That's why I didn't stay in architecture school.
Has there been any precedent in installing any of these type of PTAC units or mini split systems in any of our other downtown buildings?
The one I can think of recently, you had one up on 9th Street, but it already had those units in it. Actually, you've had two. There was one on 9th Street. It was a 2.5-story small apartment building. You had to see it because they had already painted unpainted brick. But it had previously had the units in it. They had all been removed. They had been boarded up, and they were putting new units in. So they had already had those holes. The other one that you've seen, but it already had the units in it, is up on down from Memory Lane Apartments. I can't remember what street. Well, the apartments that aren't anymore, but it was the Memory Lane Apartments. No, sorry, 8th Street. There's an apartment building, but they already had those units, and they came in and did some renovation and changed out the units, but they were already there before. So I can't remember anybody that came in that renovated a building and added them, but I could be totally wrong because downtown was in a design district for 8-9 years before I came back, so there could have been some in that time.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any where we've approved them going in where they didn't already exist. And I know as we've seen new projects come in, both new construction and renovation of existing buildings, both in downtown and elsewhere in the city, we haven't really seen these being introduced that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Is it possible to get some kind of visual of what those may look like? I know I've seen them, but I'm having a tough time visualizing what that actually looks like. I've seen units in apartment complexes that have had that, but I'm just trying to figure out what that would look like once those are put in place. There was no potential architectural rendering of.
Well, they just had the rectangles on the elevation.
Okay, I saw
showed
that. Yeah,
where they were going to be.
that didn't show me much either.
On page, let's see, what page am I on?
We don't do continuous pages in the packet.
And so in
On
this,
page 2 of the application, page 2 of the PDF, there's there's a large image of what would be in the room.
Yeah.
And
Not
then if you
exterior.
zoom in,
No,
that,
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
It's
if-
the exterior, yes, thank you.
yeah, that little,
Yeah.
so that little
More like a
grill
grate,
would be on the.
kind
yeah,
of.
outside.
Just like,
I think I know what you're talking about, but that would have been helpful.
any other comments for staff?
Okay, I got a lot of thoughts happening. I'm very excited to see this building activated. My heart is pounding right now to see life happen here. It's been begging for somebody to live here, and so I'm very excited about that. 2, these AC heating units. I am struggling with them. I feel like the pedestrian realm on the ground is almost more important of a subject. And I'm curious, will that be something that we will also discuss eventually?
they will have to come back in for that approval. Will it come back to you all? I don't know at this
Okay.
point because we
Okay.
don't have the specifics worked out. This part had to come to you, staff. Let me back up. So we have the ability on a building of this size, as long as the revisions are less than 20%, we could have done it administratively. So they provided me with the math that showed we could have done this administratively, but staff was not supportive of what they were wanting to do, and we felt we needed to bring it to the committee for discussion on this one topic. So depending on where they go with the stuff on the ground, the revisions they want to make on the first floor, You've probably seen the articles or heard the reports that swimming pool, dog park, among other things. And it's possible that it can all be done administratively. I just don't know yet, because we don't have all those details worked out.
Okay. I just don't feel like we have a full picture. It's so hard for me to give feedback on an AC unit on the face of a building. That's just kind of where I'm at. On
However,
this.
I mean, they're here, the architect is
I know.
here, the contractor is here, so they're hearing the comments that you're making if you wanted to.
Maybe it would be helpful to hear
Yeah.
their story and where they're at on this. I think that would be helpful.
Would the applicant come up and speak?
Good morning. I'm Matt Thomas of Quad Construction. Jeremy Gardner of Gardner Studios here with me. Thank you for inviting us and having us speak on this. Just to give a bit of context of the whole picture, because it sounds like that's very helpful. We're representing the developers today. They are under contract to purchase the building. They have not actually purchased it. One of the terms and conditions of the contract is that they had to have building permits in hand to be able to move forward with the closing. So this was one of the conditional pieces of that, was getting the permit through. As you saw and heard in the news, they've recently been granted some TIF money. The challenge in this building, which many of you know has failed in conversions multiple times in the past, is that, as mentioned earlier, original infrastructure. And I can't underscore that enough. Everything that's here is original, has not been updated in the last 40 years. So in some essence, complete gut of the infrastructure has to happen, or some version of that. And so the scenario that was brought to this was to try and get to an affordable rent rate. And as such, this was the solution that we were working our way through in lieu of kind of the original infrastructure, complete replace and gut. Obviously, to do that, that requires a pretty big change to the exterior of it. But as Laura mentioned, it's under 2.5% of the overall exterior, mostly affecting the north and south elevations. The east and west only affect really the stairwells. So there are options to that are outside of this, but really the primary concern is for the actual units themselves in the north and south elevation. I'll let Jeremy speak a little bit to the character of it and how we think that there are ways to accommodate that.
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Jeremy Gardner with Gardner Studio. I think that there's definitely a way to introduce these grills, for lack of a better term, these louvers, so that it fits within the architectural theme of the horizontal nature. We will end up giving the building a fresh coat of paint, and I think that it's not like you're going to have that contrast of spandrel panel, then louver, then spandrel panel. The intent is going to be that they go away as much as we can. And so I think that just from the standpoint of the economics of the deal, where it just is too cost prohibitive to resurrect the original central plant, basically, that supplied all these rooms, and that to have the ability to individually control each of these units is paramount. And so I feel like we're committed, and Quad is committed to coming up with a solution that minimizes that visual impact from, whether it be from a building from afar or from the pedestrian experience. I think that's really what our mandate is, and our goal is. We live and work in this area, so we definitely don't want to see a bunch of moles put on the facade of this building. I think that's really what we will attempt to do, and I think that we can provide renderings or whatever that shows, like, both from a zoomed in perspective as well as zooming out what that could look like. Because I think we can use some of the already existing, those vertical datum lines that are in the spandrel panel that's below the windows. Like, so those louvers we can address and really start to marry up with some of the architectural features. And but anyway, so I think that's really what we intend to do, and I feel like, given our past experience, we've done this before on other projects like the Bradford House Hotel, which is obviously not in this downtown design district, but it was another historic structure that we had to do similar things. And so I think it's not outside of our wheelhouse to try to come up with an architectural solution that really goes away, and hopefully nobody really is the wiser.
And I might circle one back around. So the only other reason why we did not bring the first floor plan in for approval at this time is that we felt like we needed to get through this bigger topic on the upper floors first, but then also secondarily, there's a lot line that's in a not in a great space on the north side of the building, interferes with a potential pool amenity that wants to go in, and so we can't make that legal change until the property has changed hands. So if you can kind of see all the layering of things that are all trying to go together. There will be a massive amenities package for the first floor, which is what kind of complements having a 316 square foot apartment. There has to be some trade-off in that sense. So,
I tend to agree with everything you're saying. I mean, it's all about the pro forma, so it has to work, or it's not a project. And no matter how we cut it, there's a line, and everything has to fit on one side of the line. So that's where I get really passionate about trying to find the solution to make it work to where it meets the requirements but still meets the pro forma requirements of the potential developer. I also agree that there is a solution. The columns protrude in front of the lower panels. The lower panels have deep relief in them. I have no idea how thick they are. I don't know what the cross section is. It seems like there is a solution out there somewhere, and it may be meeting in the middle. There may have to be spend a little money so that you can make them go away, and they're not just an additive element that's stuck on the front, but instead maybe it's a slightly different unit that has a slightly different profile and presents itself differently. Maybe there's a little shroud, something that is perimeter to it that makes it all seem like, oh, it worked. It should have been there from the beginning, and then from the pedestrian view, it goes away visually, and then from far away, you don't even see it. Your visual line is blurred to the point that it really looks like a horizontal band. I think there's a solution. We don't see it yet. Obviously, we would need to see something. There might be a solution because the impact is so small and can go under administrative approval that you could get the visual to a point that staff could approve it. And I appreciate the fact that we get the opportunity to see it, and I really do think there's a solution. But if the solution appeases staff, I don't necessarily have to see it from the standpoint of that.
So and I left all of my close-up of windows out of my PowerPoint, but I have a bunch in the folder that I took. So what I'm hearing you say is that the verticals actually protrude further than the panels. I see what you're saying.
They do.
So there's a depth in there.
So when the sun is from the extreme west or the extreme east, there's going to be a giant shadow across those. There's other things that are happening across the course of the day that makes me think that there's a way to make this happen visually to disappear. But with just the cut sheet and the elevation, we don't see it yet. In my initial review, I actually was more concerned about the west elevation because the dots were so prominent on such a large field of nothing that I thought it would be a more difficult challenge. But I hear what everybody's saying. I think there's a way to solve these. I just think it needs to be vetted.
I'm going to say the same thing. I've been struggling with trying to balance it. I really appreciate the comments that were made earlier that this is a place that has needed people to live there for a long, long time. I also know that as a community, there's a need for this kind of housing. And I believe that the solution is there. I'm not an architect, so I don't know what it is, but I would hate to see this project not be able to move forward because it wasn't just right. And my hope is that it can be moved forward and that there can be a solution that everyone thinks works as far as maintaining at least the historic nature, or doesn't adversely impact the look of what, because I didn't realize that this was that old. And when you look at how long the architecture and all the other issues that have been lifted up on this project, my hope is that we can continue to move it forward. I don't know if we need to see this again either, but my hope is that we can find a way to move this project forward that at least meets the minimal needs that have been lifted up by the staff.
Laura, Katie, can you speak to this? Is this something that you think that this is such a large kind of design change to the building that we would need to, that this needs to be presented back to committee, or do you think that this is something that could be administratively approved? What are your thoughts?
So I think this is something that could be administratively approved. I would personally like a little bit more direction from the committee
Sure.
on kind of what you would like to see, short of they just go away entirely, what you would like to see on getting a panel that is more, minimally visible, et cetera. Just any other direction you have to the applicant and to staff on what we're aiming for with the design.
And I was going to ask Tony, when you were talking about the columns and you were talking about how below the window it's set in, were you thinking that where the unit goes could literally end up being a band that's built up to be flush with where the columns are, and then it makes it look like it always had that particular horizontal band?
I didn't know if there's room for the unit to go back into if there's a way that it's more internal than external. And then from an outside perspective, is there something that goes around whatever the unit part is to where really it just fits in the architecture and doesn't present itself at all from the outside standpoint? Yes, you would see something if there's some louvers. I don't know how I didn't research PTAC units, but I don't know what's available there. Also, like you said, it could be that it comes out just enough to where it works in plane with the columns, and then there's something that unifies it. I think, like I was saying, there's a solution. I don't necessarily know what it is or want to even guide it. I just want to admit the fact that I believe that there's a way to solve it. And I think that the solution has to work within the dollars as well.
Just to clarify, the units are interior. So the only thing that's visible is the louver.
Just the louver.
Is the louver. So the louver would be flush with the spandrel panel. And so what I'm suggesting that we could explore is we take those center two vertical datums that are part of that center window spandrel, and we can span a louver, and when the building gets fresh coat of paint, I don't have my laser pointer, but but anyway, so it basically would fit that entire middle spandrel panel with, even though we don't need that many square feet of louver for the unit to function, but I think architecturally we can find a way to make it justify so that it looks intentional, even though it may not be original, but can still look intentional enough to not detract from, the composition of that facade. So.
Right.
So for me, all of that works. I can see that working, but I don't think it would take away from the historical look of the building. I was concerned, and obviously thinking of those big units that you had sticking out of there, that everybody would be like, oh, that kind of really doesn't look very uniform with what's down here. But what the architect has explained and what Tony has lifted up, I think that is enough in order to keep the look as close as possible to the original look of this building, and I could live with that.
I think for me, we need to see the detail of how it works. So we need, like, an elevation with a rectangle is useful to get the pro forma to go, but how wide is the PTAC unit? What are the center to centers on the mullions? What's the detail of how that window system actually works? We don't have, where does it live in the plane of the glass? I think plan, section, full detail of a typical bay would be enough. Show me the detail on a typical bay. The PTAC is this wide, the mullions are this wide, the sill is here, we're gonna show full grill here. I think the burden of proof on how it works is all we need to get that done on the north and the south. I think the west and the east need to remain full concrete shear wall, because I think punching holes in that would be a bit tragic. You know, that
Katie, I have
ribbed
some good
precast
pictures of
concrete's pretty
those.
amazing. So, and I would just say, if the existing infrastructure, I'm guessing, is a 4-pipe system,
Two pipe.
a 2-pipe, okay. And so I would imagine to say, maybe we come back with some sort of electric system that accommodates those stairwells on the east and the west, and we're allowed to maintain the monolithic concrete facade. I wouldn't say it's a beautiful concrete facade, but it is character defining on the building, and so probably important to not punch holes.
I would agree. I would think that the mechanical engineer could probably solve something for that small load, that they could even take a bunch of cassettes, internal cassettes, and a single condensing unit on top, or maybe 2 condensing units per facade, and all of that could go away. You wouldn't be cutting concrete. You wouldn't be worrying about breaching the envelope of the weatherproof envelope, and it might, because it's such a minor percentage of the overall thing, it might still work within the dollars.
Katie, can you give me back the PowerPoint? Because I have some good pictures. This still has all the trees, and so you can't see anything. Because what I wanted to do was, you guys were talking about a concern over the east and the west. So I just wanted to, so this is the east. And then that's the west. That's the one that's really visible on the west. So I just wanted to make sure we brought that up.
And the other thing I would imagine is you would say the floor to floors are pretty tight, or it's like 10'6" or something like that.
I don't remember, the floor's under 10, isn't it?
Yeah, it's under 10.
And so maybe a section through one of the units that show modern day pancake units would establish a ceiling line of 6'7" and a bathroom, and the ductwork would be a problematic. Just something that would prove why modern electric DX systems would not be appropriate on this project.
And what you'll see in that is that we're exposing all the original structural ceilings. They were popcorn on concrete, so it's tight. It's very, very tight.
I think just the key section, I
Yep.
think if you had a bay study that showed me elevation, section, plan detail, and then a section all the way back through the unit to show, like,
Why?
yeah.
I'll reiterate, I think that this project, if it's possible to make this happen with everything, that it's really critical. This would be a great thing downtown, to get rid of this void and to make it into something that's fully activated. I believe there's a solution for all of these that will be great. So,
And I fully believe in the contractor and the architect to do it, and so I just want the drawings that prove it, because in 25 years, when a different owner owns the building, there should be a stamp that says, this is how it was approved. You can't now install PTACs 3 inches outside of that plane.
So is there any type of wording, kind of, as we kind of work through recommendation, how do we come up with a design, or just how do we word this to make sure that you get what what city needs or staff needs to make sure this moves forward?
Well, we were hearing, because I want to make sure where maybe you've landed or you haven't landed on it coming back or not, because I clearly heard that's what Eric was saying in referencing the sections that he wanted to see to show how it was going to work and why they couldn't do other things, versus getting feedback from you all and then having staff try to interpret it and getting what you needed. But I mean,
I'd
I
like to
clearly heard,
I'd like to see it again, but I'm only one of 5, and so I'd like to put that stance, and I'd also like to make sure they have a chance to speak up on when they would need to be able to come back to this based on timelines on the building being under contract. So, your deadline to
That's
go
a
in
very
front of us in
aggressive
October was 2 days ago. So,
well, actually, for cases continued from it's next Tuesday.
okay.
Is new projects was 2 days ago. You're correct. But if you guys continue it and they understand what the time constraints are, because normally when you continue something, we go, I'm not so sure they can get what you want to staff in time because of the turnaround. Because we do have new cases in that I'm in the process of starting to review to try and keep them on schedule as well.
How does a continuance work with your current, if you were, I would say if you were able to internalize the stairwells to where the east and west facades go away, we're gonna not have any issue. If you're able to develop a detail and get that to Laura in the next 48 hours or whatever her time frame is, that just shows that one bay and confirmation of just a one-line cross-section, does that impact your closing detrimentally?
Our client is very aggressively interested in closing immediately. We've spent several months working through other permitting issues, and all of those have all been resolved. This is the last remaining item on us getting our permit granted. So I would say if there was a way for staff to approve it, that would be excellent, but we definitely want to move forward in whatever way is possible.
Yeah. Is there any way to do a
Conditional?
Yeah, conditional.
Yeah, you all can do an approval with the condition that documentation of the various items that have been discussed today be submitted to staff. And I think we've gotten pretty clear direction on everything that you want to see and that you want to have captured in a certificate of approval. So I think staff has what we need. It's just whether the committee feels like you're good with that going to staff and not coming back to you.
Well, we've got to come back for site plan and ground floor. So could we conceptually say we approve the use of PTAC units on the north and south elevation, but will approve the final detailing with the subsequent application for the ground floor and site?
The only problem with that is that it hampers me on being able to sign off on their permit because their building permit for floors 2 through 10 includes those units.
So my thought is that, great point, that they are going to have to come back for the ground floor stuff, that we go ahead and approve, and I trust and I feel based on their response that they understand what the goal is for us in the changes to the PTAC units. And if there's a major problem and it doesn't come across that that's what's happening, we don't approve the ground floor.
I'm curious if there could be some clarifying narrative that if this was achieved, you'd be fine for staff to approve it. If staff received a cross-section that showed A and B and C, and validated that concern, staff can approve it. If staff sees a little three-dimensional bay with shadows that shows that the the impact to the facade will not present a line other than a line that's existing currently, that profile of rectangle. So even if the P-TAC is inset of it, the louver that is on top follows and tracks. If there could be a narrative that says, if these things get delivered to staff, then I don't have to see it. And I'm feeling like those are the things that I'm expecting that would be created, but is there a way to put that kind of narrative as such to where staff can go, okay, A, B, C, I've checked these three
Yes,
boxes?
so I think you all can approve with a condition that A, B, C, D are submitted to staff, that the PTAC units on the east and west elevation are eliminated. We don't care how they do it because we don't review the interior. We just need them to not be there,
Right.
if that's what the requirement is. And as always, if something gets approved with a condition and the applicant comes back to staff and says, we're just really not going to be able to meet that condition, it would come back to you all as essentially as a revision or just reconsideration of the application.
Sounds like a great motion.
Yeah. Okay. Make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. I can't make the motion. That's right.
Yes, no, I'll make the motion.
First, before you make the motion, should you ask if anybody else wants to speak
Oh.
Oh, thank
on
you.
this?
Is there anyone else in the gallery that wants to speak on this item? I forgot we had.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I'd like to know is there anything that Eric specifically wants to hear in the motion with respect? I think we've covered the cross-section and the north and the east and west elevations, but with respect to that bay diagram, do you have, like, it shall project, no, we don't want, okay, we did everything, but the louver, we went and got a very inexpensive, off-the-shelf, but it's 5 inches thick and it's just stuck to the front face and it protrudes 5. That's obviously not what the intent of our conversation is. So I think that, yes, it's the profile, but it really needs to just disappear.
Yeah, I think, well, am I on? Okay. I think what we need is, in plan, the outside face of the grill aligns with the outside face of the spandrel. And in elevation, the grill takes up the entire size of the spandrel to align with the spandrel adjacent. So in essence, we want it to look in the exact same plane and in the exact same elevation as the spandrel adjacent, just grill instead of solid.
Is that achievable? As a concrete spandrel, you'd have to put your grill back, you'd have to chip back the spandrel then on the center grill, on the center piece.
Well, we're removing the center spandrel anyway to do this.
Are those individual 3 pieces?
There's a rustication joint as well.
There's a rustication joint, it's not 3 pieces. So it's just a single, can we look at that elevation again? I'm thinking that it's going to have to protrude a little, but the little would almost, because there's the rustication joint from a distance, as long as that little doesn't present itself, like how thin can that piece that you put over it be? That's the question. That's the question.
Yeah.
It can't be sticking out 5 inches, but I don't know what exists. I've seen it as small as 2, but 2 is still pretty big.
Yeah, I think what we'd like to be able to do is, if with conditional approval, work with city staff to, like, okay, here's the tolerances that we're able to accomplish based on how we're going to approach the architectural solution, because the architectural solution is going to be a little bit above and beyond what the actual mechanical function needs to be from a amount of square feet or square inches of grill. So, I mean, I think we've got things in our head that we can really explore, but I'd like to have some of that dialogue with staff but I'm confident we can find a way, because I think you can pick up on, there's a lot of things to pick up on that I think will feel natural to the facade.
So,
I mean,
back-
just in reality, right now, there's a rustication joint.
right.
That rustication joint is creating a shadow line. But from a distance, you see the shadow line. You can't tell if that's projected in or projected out. And from all of our discussions, you We didn't know whether the columns were in or out, or so maybe it's something that rustication joint becomes a positive, and we create a different shadow line. So now you have your rusticate. This is again, you've got all the tools to solve this. It's just not yet solved.
Yeah.
So, Eric, your thoughts?
I mean, at the end of the day, we've got a good architect, a good contractor that want to do the right thing for Oklahoma City. So I would like to trust that they will work with staff to create a condition that is as historically compatible as possible. And so I would like to relinquish that kind of part of my concern.
And we have precedent for when we've done that in the past, and specifically noted that the individuals, the team that is presenting is one that has just given us quality work. So we know that we'll get quality work, and we're trusting that they will. So I think we have precedent on that.
Okay, so I interrupted
Already
the
have.
original motion maker earlier. Gary, I think you were getting ready to make a motion earlier?
Actually, our staff person is so fast on the draw, it actually is in.
Oh,
On
okay,
our
but-
screen, it
And-
is. So it's
and-
like, I can't pull it back even if I wanted to.
And your motion was?
Here we go. Staff? It's coming.
Can you read that?
You got that?
What,
Do you want me to read it?
yes, if you would,
Okay.
I apologize. We already got the motion up, so I can't do anything.
Oh, no, you can, because what he's got up is just what was on the agenda, and so you guys can make whatever motion you want
No,
to.
they can't see it.
can't.
Their screen's frozen on the vote.
you keep, I'm like, okay, tell me how.
Keith, can you
There you
close
go.
it out?
Yeah, so I don't-
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
can,
Tony's got it.
Well, because the one thing I heard you all say is you want them removed from the east and the west facades, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, and that was not part of what staff had, that we had it from the west but not the east.
right, so we'll have to make a condition for that.
Okay, so
Have to modify the condition.
we've got approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulation and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff reports, with the conditions that, and that's where I was hoping.
Oh, okay. So staff is assisting you in what you're
Yes,
saying. The
exactly.
first thing is, A, the applicant eliminates the PTAC units from the west and east facades. I believe that's
Correct.
what I heard you all
That's
talk
one.
about.
Correct.
And you all heard them say that. And the second thing is the one that's more complicated, that deals,
Oh, hit your mic.
The applicant works with staff to establish an approved installation detail for these PTAC units in the facade.
is that what I heard you say?
Yes, it is.
Okay, excellent.
Second?
Kayla Copeland, second.
Okay. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you
Thank you
very
guys,
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you have one more piece of action you need
Okay.
today.
Number 7, other business to approve our 2024 meeting schedule.
So you got lucky next year. I didn't have to change, if I'm remembering correctly. I did not have to change any of your meeting dates because of holidays.
Cool.
That usually impacts River. So this is before you, as it always is this time of year, for you all to approve it.
Motion to approve the 2024 meeting schedule.
Second.
Okay. Jones Blatt? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
All
So
right,
now
thank you.
take this back to your office and put all of these dates on your calendars. Thank you. Yes, you.
Why mess with my process?
Okay.
Are on my calendar already.
looks like there are, under communications, there are 7 items under administrative approval report. Anyone want to speak on any of those comments?
Anybody
or
have any
of those items?
questions of staff on my AA? There's only 3. You had 7? Oh, I'm so sorry. I looked at the minutes. I looked at the wrong page. There are 7, you're right.
Yeah, I'm like,
I was a little busier, yeah. The one that I do want to point out, let me see if it showed up on here, and I'm so excited, and actually, the architect is in the audience, so he can hear it. So you might have recalled, we had the Pasteur Medical Building, and staff was very concerned about some windows, and they were wanting to, and so they have modified the project. We're so excited. They've eliminated the number of windows that they're expanding from 17 down to 3. And so it will have much less of an impact, I think it will, and I think it will still work. So we're very excited for that to have happened. Let's see what else. Other than that, signs. And I won't go into the song, but anyway, there's signs everywhere.
any comments for staff? Any comments from committee members before closing?
And just a reminder, we do have a meeting next month, so I'll send out a quorum call. Please check as we're headed toward the end of the year and holidays.
Okay.
Typically can run into issues with people being gone.
Okay. Our next regular meeting date is Thursday, October 19th, 2023. New applications were to be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. Revisions and information on continued projects are to be submitted by, what's the date?
Oh, is it not there?
The 26th?
Yeah, next
Oh,
Tuesday.
there we go. I missed it down here.
It's okay.
Revision information on continued projects be submitted by September 26th, 2023. Thank you, guys. I think we're adjourned.
Thank you.